To remove the power supply, first remove the left side cover and the right side cover. Detach the two power supply connectors from the top corner of the motherboard. Detach the large power supply connector from the center of the motherboard. Detach the power connector or connectors from all internal hard drives. In units with an upper internal hard drive cage, pull the upper hard drive power connectors out of the cable guides on the bottom of the upper cage. In units with an upper external hard drive bay, detach the power supply junction cables to the external hard drive power cables. Detach the power connector or connectors from the graphics card or cards installed in the unit. Remove the graphics card power cables from the cable guide on the top of the bottom internal hard drive cage. Snip the zip tie securing the graphics card power cables to the side of the bottom internal drive cage. Detach the hard drive SATA data cables from the motherboard that connect near the large motherboard power supply connector to allow the large power supply cable to be pulled to the right side of the unit. Detach the optical drive power connector from the optical drive on the right side of the unit. Pull the top motherboard power supply cables to the right side of the unit through their cable access hole. Detach the optical drive data connector from the optical drive if an optical drive is installed for access to the large power supply connector. Detach the large red USB connector from the motherboard to make room if there is a long graphics card installed. Pull the large motherboard power supply connector to the right side of the unit through the central cable access hole. Pull the upper hard drive bay power cables to the right side of the unit through the central access hole. Pull the bottom internal hard drive power cables to the right side of the unit through their bottom access hole. Pull the top motherboard power supply cables out of their cable guides on the right side of the unit that lead to the bottom of the unit. Pull the optical drive and upper hard drive power connectors out of their cable guides on the right side. Be careful of the top I/O connectors that share the same cable guides. Pull the large motherboard power cable out of its cable guide at the bottom right side of the unit. Detach the 4 Phillips No. 2 screws that secure the power supply to the rear of the unit. Slide the power supply slightly into the unit, then pull the power supply out, carefully feeding the power supply connectors through the bottom access hole from the right side to the left inside part of the unit to fully remove the power supply. There are guides on the inside chassis wall to assist in the correct placement of the power supply. To replace the power supply, first feed the power supply connectors from the left side to the right side of the unit through their bottom access hole. Align the power supply within its guides, then slide the power supply to the rear of the unit. Secure the power supply to the rear of the unit with its 4 Phillips No. 2 screws. Replace the large motherboard power supply connector into its large cable guide at the bottom right side of the unit. Replace the optical drive and upper hard drive power connectors into their cable guides. Replace the top motherboard power cables into their guides, leading to the top of the unit. Feed the bottom internal hard drive power connectors back to the main cavity of the unit through their bottom access hole. Feed the upper hard drive power connectors back to the main cavity of the unit through the central access hole. Feed the large central motherboard power supply connector back to the main cavity through the central access hole. Replace the red USB connector to the motherboard if it was detached to make room for the motherboard connector. Replace the optical drive data connector if it was detached from the optical drive. Feed the top motherboard power supply connectors back to the main cavity of the unit through their access hole. Replace the power connector to the optical drive if an optical drive is installed in the unit. Replace the hard drive SATA connectors to the motherboard near the large power connector header. Secure the graphics card power cables to the side of the bottom internal hard drive cage with a zip tie. Place the graphics card power cables into the cable guide at the top of the bottom internal hard drive cage. Reconnect the graphics card cables to the graphics card or cards. If the unit has an upper external hard drive cage, reconnect the power junction cables to the external hard drive power cables. If the unit has an upper internal hard drive cage, place the upper hard drive power cables into the cable guides on the upper hard drive cage. Replace all connectors to all internal hard drives. Replace the large power supply connector to the motherboard. Replace the two smaller motherboard power supply connectors at the top edge of the motherboard.